Hi everyone, it's Helen Horta here, founder of Form Help, and we are doing a Smart Traveller Advice daily updates for the following countries and islands. So we've got China, French Polynesia, Tonga, Philippines, Japan, Belgium, and we'll finish off with Sri Lanka. Okay, let's get started with China. Now, this was updated on the 3rd of June, and it's still current as at today being the 6th of June. And it reads, China's entry requirements have changed. If you haven't previously been diagnosed with or recovered from COVID-19, you will need to take 2 nucleic acid tests, one 2 days prior to travel and another on the day of travel. Now, some airlines may also require a rapid antigen test on the day of travel, so confirm departure test requirements with your nearest Chinese embassy or consulate and airline requirements with your travel agency. Now, recent COVID-19 outbreaks in Shanghai, Beijing, and other large cities resulted in mass testing, residential lockdowns, closures of schools, businesses, and suspension of public transport. Access to medical facilities and other essential services was disrupted. Ongoing response measures can include mandatory regular COVID-19 testing and the requirement to show negative COVID-19 results to gain access to some venues and other public areas. Now, positive cases are subject to the requirements of local authorities and may result in transfer to a designated medical or quarantine facility or additional testing. Now, further COVID-19 outbreaks throughout China are possible, and countermeasures including flight suspensions and rerouting may be imposed with little or no warning. Stay informed of local conditions, particularly if you intend to travel within China. Now, as previously advised, authorities have detained foreigners on grounds of endangering national security, and Australians may be at risk of arbitrary detention. Now, the Australian government does advise exercise a high degree of caution in China overall due to the impacts of COVID-19, and then other levels apply in some areas. Now, if you do scroll down below, there is more information, but just looking at the advice levels, exercise a high degree of caution in China and exercise a high degree of caution in Tibet and Yin Yang. Okay, so yeah, as I said before, if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read, and that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for China. Next, we'll go to French Polynesia. French Polynesia. Now, this was updated on the 3rd of June and it's still current as at today being the 6th of June. Now, specific measures apply if you're travelling to or from French Polynesia, and this depends on where you've been or where you're going. Now, you'll need to provide proof that you're fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and if your last dose of a COVID-19 vaccine was more than 9 months ago, you must have a booster dose to be considered fully vaccinated. Now, if you're unvaccinated or aren't fully vaccinated and are over 12 years old, you're required to show a negative result certificate from a COVID-19 RAT test within 48 hours of departure, or a RT-PCR test within 72 hours of flight departure. Now, if you're departing from an EU country, you need to provide a recovery certificate from COVID-19. Now, the Australian government does advise exercise a high degree of caution in French Polynesia due to the impacts of COVID-19, and the advice levels again exercise a high degree of caution in French Polynesia. Now, if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read, and that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for French Polynesia. Next, we'll go to Tonga. Tonga. Okay, so this was updated on the 2nd of June, and it's still current as at today being the 6th of June, and it reads, Tonga is currently orange under the Tonga COVID-19 traffic light framework. Now, this is the second highest level, and you need to quarantine for 5 days when entering Tonga. Now, curfew is in place from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Tonga has extended its COVID-19 restrictions nationwide until at least the 4th of June. Now, face masks and social distancing are required in public, including at hospitality venues and on public transport. All businesses are open except for nightclubs. Mobile phone and internet connectivity has been restored within Tonga Tapu following the eruption of the Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano on the 15th of Jan, and work continues to improve communications in the outer islands, including the Vava'u and Ha'apai groups. Monitor media for the latest developments and follow the instructions of local authorities, and a state of emergency remains in place due to COVID-19. Now, the Australian government does advise reconsider your need to travel to Tonga due to the impacts of COVID-19. Again, the advice levels reconsider your need to travel to Tonga. Now, if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read, and that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for Tonga. Next, we'll go to the Philippines. Now, this was updated on the 1st of June and is still current as at today, being the 6th of June. Now, if you're fully vaccinated against COVID-19 with at least one booster, you don't need to undergo pre-departure COVID-19 testing. Now, if you aren't fully vaccinated with one booster, you must provide a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR test within 48 hours or a negative COVID-19 RAT test administered and certified by a healthcare professional within 24 hours to enter. Now, children may be exempt from this requirement, and if you're fully vaccinated, you can enter the Philippines without a visa or quarantine, provided you meet specific requirements. Now, transit restrictions are in place between some international airport terminals, so follow the Philippines Department of Tourism for the latest advice, and you should also confirm the rules for your airline as it may vary between airlines. And the Australian government does advise reconsider your need to travel to the Philippines overall due to the impacts of COVID-19, and then higher levels apply in some other areas. Now, again, the advice levels reconsider your need to travel to the Philippines. Do not travel to central and western Mindanao, including the Zamboanga Peninsula, the Sulu Archipelago, and the southern Sulu Sea area, and then reconsider your need to travel to eastern Mindanao. And if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read, and that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for the Philippines. Next, we'll go to Japan. Now, this was updated on the 1st of June and is still current as at today, being the 6th of June. And it reads, from the 10th of June, Japan will accept foreign tourists in stages. Initially, this will be limited to guided and organised tours only from countries listed as blue, which are low risk. Australia is listed as a blue country. The company organising your tour will sponsor your visa application. Be advised that Japan's visa waiver program is still suspended, and the Australian government advises exercise a high degree of caution in Japan overall due to the impacts of COVID-19, and then higher levels apply in some other areas. And again, the advice levels exercise a higher degree of caution in Japan and reconsider your need to travel to the restricted areas near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Now, if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read, and that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for Japan. Next, we'll go to Belgium. Now, this was updated on the 31st of May, and it's still current as at today, being the 6th of June. And it reads, COVID-19 restrictions have eased across Belgium. Face masks are no longer mandatory except in health facilities. The ban on non-essential travel from outside the EU has been lifted. You're no longer required to complete a passenger locator form, present a COVID-19 vaccination or recovery certificate, or a negative COVID-19 test. Now, the requirements for quarantine and COVID-19 testing on arrival has been removed. Entry restrictions still apply if you're coming from a very high-risk country, and see the travel information below. Now, the Australian government does advise exercise a higher degree of caution in Belgium due to the risk of terrorist attack. And again, the advice levels exercise a higher degree of caution in Belgium. And if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read. And that is the latest travel advice updates from the Australian government for Belgium. And lastly, we'll conclude with Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka. Now, this is updated on the 27th of May, and it's current as at today being the 6th of June. And it reads, we continue to advise you reconsider your need to travel to Sri Lanka due to the security situation. The Australian government has authorised the voluntary departure of dependents of Australian High Commission staff in Colombo. Public demonstrations continue to occur throughout Sri Lanka and several violent incidents have occurred. Avoid demonstrations and events that draw large groups. Demonstrations can lead to disruptions to traffic and public transport. Follow the advice of local authorities and monitor the media for updates. A public emergency can be declared and curfews may be imposed at short notice. Carry relevant travel and ID documents with you at all times. Sri Lanka is experiencing a shortage of fuel, cooking gas and medicines, and you may experience disruptions to fuel supply and planned power outages. Now, the Australian government advises reconsider your need to travel to Sri Lanka due to the security situation. And again, the advice levels reconsider your need to travel to Sri Lanka due to the security situation. Now, if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read. And that is the latest travel advice update from the Australian government for Sri Lanka. Now, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Safe travels, have a blessed day, and take care wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening. Bye.